Hello and welcome to the second part of my build or painting series on the Panzer IV for my Franz Dio, which currently is, of course, running in the Franz Dio playlist. So it's kind of combined here. And as you can see, the Panzer IV has the turret painted, which we did in the last episode. If you want to see this, go back to the first episode of this, and then you can see how I painted the interior, which is why there's some white overspray on top, of course, and down there. But what we're going to do today is we are going to put down the base paint on both the tank as well as the tracks, which I have sitting right here as well, already in primer. Like I said in the first video, I primed them with Make Ammo one-shot primer, and today we are going to apply AK Interactive's color modulation set for Panzer Gray vehicles. We are, however, and I just want to make this sure before we get started, and let me quickly take the paints and put them in the shot so you guys can see what I'm talking about. We are, however, not using all 6 of them. Those are 6 paints. And as you can see, they have different shades of gray. Haha, but that's not 50. Ah, stupid book and movie reference here. That was the first in this video. I got some flack on the last one because I used quite frequently. And I know that. The thing is, these videos are not scripted. And when they're not scripted, you tend to think while you're talking. And when you think while you're talking, and you're not talking to yourself all the time, don't say which I'm currently am. You just use them. Those and ahs, they happen. But, like I said, I will try to not use them as frequently. And as you can see, we have a base coat, a dark base, a shadow coat, which is even darker, and you can see they have numbers. 161, 162, then we have 163, 164, 165, and 166. I can already tell you that 166 is not going to feature the dark gray shine. I can also tell you that 161, the shadow, is not going to feature. So we're down to 4 paints. Those 4 will feature in some way, shape, or form. The dark gray, dark base will feature around the running gear, around the back, underneath the exhaust, and in the front of the vehicle. The dark gray base is going to be the paint that I will apply on most of the upper surfaces, which I will then, of course, highlight with the dark gray light base. And last but not least, I will brush paint on some highlights with dark gray highlight after that. So what we are going to do first, though, is, and this is a thing that I really want to emphasize because I want to do some nice effects on the exhaust. We are going to brush paint the exhaust with Vallejo's German Chem Black Brown, which is a rust browny tone. Basically the color that, or am I doing this with this? No, we're not doing it like this. I will be painting the exhaust like normal, and then I will be doing some post operation on the exhaust. So what we're doing now, we will start with dark gray, dark base. So I'll be right back after I set up my airbrush. Just as I did when I painted the turret interior, we'll be using my trusty Harder Steamback Infinity. And we will be thinning our paints with the Ultimate Airbrush Thinner from Ultimate Modeling Products, which is, well, almost empty. I've been using this for quite a while now, and it's always been doing some good work for me. I'll of course take off the sprocket wheel. Sadly, those idlers, for some weird reason, have gotten stuck to the arms that they are attached to. So I basically have to paint them on the vehicle, which is not ideal, and I normally don't do it like this, but, well, we have no alternative right here, other than breaking them off, and I don't want to really do that. Always, and with these AK paints, I think this is even more important. You need to really shake the paints really well, because for some weird reason on these AK paints, the pigment and the medium that carries them, which is basically some sort of liquid, maybe water, maybe some sort of alcohol-based paint, although I think these are just pure acrylics on water base. Yeah, these are water-based paints. So they kind of separate very easily, and you really got to shake them really well. I can show you right here. You can see that we have the pigment on the bottom of the bottle, and over up top it's a lot lighter. So yeah, you gotta make sure to shake this really well in order to actually get the paint that you want out of the bottle. I shake these, god damn it. I thin these paints at about a 60-40 ratio, 60% paint, 40% thinner. I don't want them to be too thin. I always give the model a good cover with air, because I've got rabbits living in the house, and those rabbits tend to lose their hair and their fur, and the rabbit hair kind of flies around the apartment and then kind of sits on top of the tank. And if you then paint it, you will be the lucky one to have some rabbit hair on your tank, which you definitely don't want to have. Okay, see, like, just add a couple of drops, then shake it, stir it with a brush. This looks way too light, what the hell? Oh. So you can see there's pigment trapped on the bottom of the bottle here. So if I just spray this on the, you can see the pigment density is not what we would like it to be. So I'll give this a test, and if this doesn't work out, I will have to go and stir the paint within the bottle. Yeah, this is not working out the way I had intended it to work out. Hello? Yeah, now it's kind of working. And remember what we did on the last one. Always keep your Q-tip handy to clean the needle, because this needle tends to have paint collect around the tip. And there we have the first culprit of rabbit hair. Told you, this is a problem. On the lower hull, it's not that big of a problem, because we can always cover this with dirt and dust at a later point, but you still don't want this to happen. Now we have something clogging up our airbrush, which is also not what you want to happen. What you want to have happen. Something is clogging up our airbrush. This might be a clump of paint. Now you want to at least cover the front surface here of your tank with these with the darker paint. I might have just not thinned the paint. No, it's thinned properly. I think the airbrush is just acting up a bit today. It might be because I have the heating on today because it's very cold outside and maybe the paint is not reacting as you would like or as I'm used to. As you can see underneath, I always go for very good coverage. Don't really need or want the primer color to shine through here because the dark gray that we're using is already a very dark color. And then of course, and this is very important, and I want to emphasize, wow, I'm really messing up my language today. You want to cover the underneath here, like the underside of your tank, because especially if you display this on a diode, and there might be a chance for people to see underneath. You really want to cover this on this side here. Yeah, I think I need to clean the airbrush a bit more. I think that's the issue here with the paint flow. I think it's down to the airbrush not being properly cleaned after I painted the interior of the turret. I'm sorry for being out of shot there for a second. Oh, see, that's the thing. There we have some pigment that was left in the bottle that did not, like, I don't know, spread within the medium, and this is what happens now. Now we have this blob of pigment underneath. Luckily this happened underneath. And let me dry this off to show you. You can see we have a bluish spot underneath, which you really don't want to have. So, like I said, we only wanted to cover the underside with this color. This is the dark gray base. Now I will take some time to clean the airbrush really well, and then we'll come back with dark gray base. Oh, this was the dark base, I'm sorry. And now we'll come back with the dark gray base once I cleaned the airbrush pretty well. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, like I said, next up is dark gray base. This time, again, we need to make sure to shake it really well, but I want to do something different as well. And I'll show you guys this just once with this bottle of paint, because I think it's an interesting or quite important thing to do every once in a while. First off, take some paper towel and clean off the lid of the bottle, because A lot of old paint collects there, and the old paint basically then flakes into whatever you put into your color cup, and that can severely influence what comes out of your airbrush. So once you take off this lid, take a kebab stick or whatever you want to use. I'm using this piece of wood here, and then really give the bottle a good shake. Although I have to say, this paint seems to be rather well shaken, or the stick that I just used was too big. I'll use a kebab stick here for a second, and then I'll see if I can, yeah, there's quite a bit of pigment stuck on the bottom of the bottle. And this is basically the pigment that we need for the color to actually have the color that is on the bottle and that you want to use. And you can see that for some reason, and I think I know the reason why this happens. I think it is because the paints are stored next to my bench and sun shines on them every now and then. And I think that the sun has a negative effect on those paints. So don't store them where there's sun. And then after you do this, put the lid back on. Put on a cap. And give it a good shake. Alright, so next up, like I said, dark base. And this time we will highlight the running gear, the bogies, the idler wheel, and the fender, the side of the fender as well as the side of the fighting compartment. As you can see in here, I'm shaking this bottle really well after what we just did, just to make sure that the paint is really well shaken. I've cleaned my airbrush with Vallejo airbrush cleaner, and again we're adding a couple drops of ultimate thinner, and then we add a couple of drops of the AK paint. Don't need that many drops this time around because this is not the base paint for our vehicle, only for some areas. Then again, we need a paper towel to do the pre-mixing, although we can just as well use our brush again. Mix the paint in the color cup. And again, we're aiming for milky consistency like this. Then test spray it. And like I said, only try to highlight the areas where you turn rollers, you're supposed to get some of this paint. Like I said, the idler wheel will get this. The bogies. Like I said, the side of the fenders. If you want to make sure not to spray the lower areas, always try to hold it up high. That way you can protect your lower areas that you already did with the darker color. Again, you do the same thing on the other side. Start with the bogies. You won't managed to not have some overspray onto the darker areas around it, but that's not the biggest problem because, like I said, we will be covering this in dust and mud. But this allows you to already add some shading effects. And similarly to what we did before, we can also add a bit of this here to the front, around this weld seam. And around the back, underneath the exhaust here. On the inside of the fender support struts here. Keep in mind we have a backside to our idlers as well. And just like that, we have already added some fake shadow. What you can then do is you have these areas around the air intake here. You can paint them in this color. Try to keep it to the intakes though. And if you really want to, you can then add some around the stowage here in the front in order to add a bit more shadows. Alright, and that's that for the dark base. So next up will be our base color, light base. This is our base color for the vehicle that we're going to use. So we'll be right back. Before we add the next layer, which I'm shaking right now, I want to give you guys a quick talk about these AK paints and what I think about them and what you should do if you want to use them properly. I think you should add some of the metal balls that you can put in these bottles to help while shaking to just like break up clots of pigment. Because these don't have them, I think, is why they clutter like this. And I'm currently experiencing very, very severe cluttering with this dark gray light base. So I hope that this is going to work out, because otherwise I'll be screwed and I will have to use different paints to simulate the exact same paint shade. So we're trying to do this with the light base now. Of course, this we need more off because this is our base color for most of the upper surfaces of the vehicle. And so far, so good. The paint looks to have the shade I want and to have the consistency I want. And as you can see, we have a very light gray. And it sprays very nicely, so fingers crossed, this is going to do exactly what we want it to do. So far, so good. These paints will of course darken once we add washes and weathering, so don't be afraid if you think this is way too light, but this will darken down as soon as we add weathering. Which will of course happen in the next video. So far, so good. Now we need to as you can see, I'm not doing a proper color modulation as you would expect. If this was a proper color modulation, you would expect different colors on the sides here. I just don't know how to use this technique to its perfect capabilities, so I'm not doing it because I would ruin the model otherwise. Again, I almost forgot to clean the needle nozzle. Yeah, this is very important, otherwise you get ugly splattering effects that you really do not want to have. So do this on a regular or frequent basis, and not like I just did, like forget about it for a while, because you could see that the brush was getting cluttered there. Now, all that's left is the front side here. And again, it seems like our brush is acting up again a bit. So just clean it up and then work your way around the storage. There we go. You want to make sure that you do not forget any areas of the vehicle though, because if you forget them, that will look weird as shit if there's black showing through or something. So always make sure that there's paint wherever there should be paint. And here's a trick that I can show you right now. If you want one of the panels, for example, this engine deck over here, to have a bit of a more like saturated look, just add a bit more paint. Then you can see there's a difference in shade. And I always do this to the top surfaces and hatches. Alright, so that is the vehicle painted. Now what we can do is, this part painted, what we can now do is our turret. We want to of course protect the lower half because we don't want this to get covered. Damn it. I had sweat on my glove. Make sure that your gloves are dry. And then you can add some of the same paint to the top of the turret. See that I'm doing only the top right now, because the sides will get similar treatment to the rest of the tank. I will add some of the darker base color to the turret sides. Of course, don't forget the hatch and the cupola. As you can see, we covered the inside there with a sponge, a piece of sponge, just to make sure that this would be protected while we spray the gray. And of course, keep in mind the cupola, don't forget the cupola. And of course, the gun. And like I said, the side of the turret will get the darker color that we added to the sides of the vehicle on the underside. And then, sure that our gun there we go. So next up, I'll take care of the sides of the turret off camera, and then last but not least, we will add the highlight with a brush, and then we're done. So I'll be back as soon as we are ready for applying the highlight. So be right back. Alright, even though I said that next up we would be painting the highlights, I decided to do the tracks first. So we are going to paint the tracks. We're going to apply the base coat, because the normal, what's it called? Normal way I do tracks is first I apply a base coat of a brown blackish color, before then adding an enamel wash, most likely this track wash from AK Interactive, before then adding either pigments or mud. And since this is used in France in the summer, this will probably only have a couple of light dust tone pigments applied to the tracks, and not that much of mud. So for paint, this time I want to try out the Chem Black Brown on the tracks, because I think it kind of adds a nice rusty brownish look to the tracks, which is basically what I'm going for. So we're going to do this. You have to keep in mind though, this is a brush paintable color. So this is a very thick, very heavy on pigment color. So we will need to thin this down to at least 60% thinner to 40% paint, because otherwise this is just going to be way too thick of a paint to airbrush. So let's quickly grab a bit of water first. Always nice to have these empty bottles handy to just add some tap water to then clean your brushes in for mixing your paint. So you got a brush ready, and then again, it's always important to shake the paints well, otherwise you're not getting the desired results. So again, using the trusted Harder Steenbeck Infinity and the UMP airbrush thinner, and then this is basically what we're using all the time, and this time we need a lot more of the thinner. As you can see, there's quite a lot of thinner in there, and then we need a well shaken paint. And our brush, and then let's see what the consistency turns out to be. And this needs a really, really good shake, because this is, like I said, a brush paint, since this is from the Panzer Aces series and not one of the Model Air colors. And this actually looks like a decent mix ratio here. So let's see if we can do this. And then just make sure Yeah. And then just apply it over the top of our tracks here. And the tracks have been primed in one-shot primer. We really want to give it a good coverage. The tracks, it's important to cover them from both sides, otherwise you will have areas where there's no paint because of the way they are constructed. And always make sure to cover the sides of the tracks as well. Some people forget about this. And of course the inside as well. And apparently I forgot to clean the tip of the airbrush again. So that's the first track run done. Now is the second one. Oh, wait, no. Just spotted something that we need to retouch there. Sorry. Right, now that's the first track run done. Let's do the second one, and then I'll show you guys the results on a fresh piece of paper in just a second, because the overspray kind of makes it hard to see how the tracks look now. And honestly, we'll be very happy if I can get this done with one go here when it comes to color, and not having to remix, because I think that the mix I have right now, the thinner paint ratio is actually exactly the way I want it. Although when you hear the airbrush, you can hear that it's struggling a bit, and that might be a sign of the paint being a bit too thick. But we're almost there. So the chipping color that I normally use for chipping is also perfectly fine track color. This is the first time I ever tried this, so I'm quite happy with the results that I'm getting here. Gotta tell you. Normally I use different browns, but yeah, I will move forward using this. So before I can show you the results, I'll just clean the airbrush quickly. Just add a couple of drops of Vallejo airbrush cleaner. I normally would use the UMP product, but it's kind of hard to get in Germany. And so I might be putting in an order of this stuff again, but it will take a while. Right now, I'm set with the Vallejo one, and then, as you can see, just clean the airbrush with the brush. Stuff like this is very useful for cleaning your airbrush, and just and a second go, and then we're almost done cleaning the airbrush, and then I can show you guys the result of the painted tracks, which I have to admit I really like. Of course they are a bit uniform now, so maybe I will use a bit of a different kind of brown over the top, like spotty, but I may also just use, and that's a technique that I've recently seen on a speckling method to add to it. I'm sorry for showing you my hairy arm. Alright, so I can put the airbrush to the side, add 2 more drops of the cleaner in the cup, and then let me quickly remove this. Aha! Ta-da! And then I'll put the tracks on here, and then I'll zoom in a second so you guys can see what this actually looks like. So here we go. I hope you can see the see this. And it doesn't even only look black for you. The thing is, I'm looking at this on the small screen on my camera. This is a very nice rust brownish look that these tracks now have. So next up for them, of course, will be weathering, which we'll be tackling in the next step. I will be painting the wheels and the sprockets off air, because it's basically just the same thing as I did right here. I then hand paint and brush paint the tires, and I have decided against painting details on the tank with the highlight color, because I think it looks too off, considering the fact that I did not do like a proper color modulation. So it's basically where we saw it the last time around. I will do a final shot where you can see the tracks and the tank before we go into weathering to finish off this video, but this is basically all the painting we do. So let me reset this, and then I'll be back with the tank and the tracks. Alright guys, here we are at the end of the second installment of this painting, not tutorial or like walkthrough of this Panzer IV. As you can see, the tank is now base painted. It got the Panzer gray on all around. It got the darker colors on the lower hull. It got the lighter colors on the upper hull. Got some very basic modulation. It's not proper modulation because I just don't know how to do this properly. You can see the nice contrast with the white on the inside, and when you look at this open hatch, I think you can actually see how well this contrast works for this model, and why I decided to leave the hatch open. Because I just really dig this contrast. Look at this beautiful contrast between the gray and the white on the inside, and you can see the weathered look on the inside as well. All I have to do is pick out the periscope here with translucent blue paint, and then the interior is perfectly fine. As you can see, we can close this up, but you already know or see why I left this open, because it adds so much interest on this model kit. And then of course the tracks, as I said, have now got their beautiful brownish rust look on them, which we can then work with in the next step. So next up for me is going to be painting the wheels and the sprockets off the air. And once that's done, I of course have to pick out some of the small details like tools with a brush and the stowage with a brush. And when that's done, we are on to the weathering stages, which of course will begin with a clear coat and me applying the decals, but since I want to show you guys how I do this, this is all going to be part of part 3. And since I currently don't think I can cover all that I really want to do still with this in one part, I think we will have to go to 4 parts in the series. But we will see about this in part 3, and then I'll see how far I get and how long the video will be if I show you everything I want to show you in that last part. So this is where we are. I hope that you guys liked the second part just as much as the ones that commented on the other one like part 3. I hope to talk to you guys, and I hope you like it, and I'll see you guys soon. So until then, thanks for watching. The Force is with you. Bye, guys.